Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Most of us are familiar with the legendary tales of John Wilkes Booth and how on April 14, 1865, he crept into the presidential box at Ford's Theater and put a single bullet into the head of the President of the United States. He then leapt onto the stage below, breaking his leg while crying, "Sic semper tyrannis," thus always to tyrants, and then escaping into the night. What many people don't know about is John Wilkes Booth and the background that ultimately resulted in the assassination of a beloved president. Now, I don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, but there is quite a background story on John Wilkes Booth, who I'm going to call JW from this point on, just because John Wilkes is just a lot to say. So here we go, the life of John Wilkes Booth in 5 minutes or less. I can take 6. Okay. 6 minutes or less. So John Wilkes Booth was born on May 10, 1838, the second youngest of 10 children, 4 of whom died in childhood. His father, Junius Brutus Booth, was one of America's prominent stage actors, a career that he did not want his children going into. Junius raised the children to be strict vegetarians, as he felt that the taking of any life, including animal, was wrong. The poster child for Peter right there. For all intents and purposes, J.W. had a very happy childhood on the farm known as Tudor Hall, just north of Baltimore in Maryland. He was the darling favorite of his mother and father, and very, very close to his older sister, Asia. His older brother, Edwin, traveled as the valet and assistant to their father. But Edwin was not with him when his father died from an infection after drinking polluted river water while returning from the West. Junius died in 1852, and J.W., at this point, age 15, had to grow up fast and become the man about the farm. J.W. never saw his father perform on stage, and Edwin only saw his father act as a result of traveling with him. Most of the time, Edwin was backstage dealing with costumes, and on one occasion was able to actually sneak into the theater to watch his father perform. It was Asia, John J.W.'s sister, who got him into politics, a decision she would later regret. He did act in childhood most of the time, got together with family friends around the farm and had little acting skits out in the woods for the animals. Edwin, in contrast, learned his acting from watching his father perform, and this helped propel Edwin's career. Edwin was acting in a theater managed by his brother Junius, who they called June, in San Francisco at the time of his father's death. I'm going to skip ahead a bit here in his life, because there's a lot to the story that led J.W. to assassinate the president. Now, for all intents and purposes, J.W. was a horrible actor. On one occasion, a critic was so freaked out, I guess you could say, by his acting, they refused to publish the review of the play. However, people didn't pay to see John Wilkes Booth act. They paid to see him fight. John Wilkes Booth had the worst case of stage fright and would always have trouble memorizing lines and blocking. What he was good at, and what critics also noted him for, was his stage combat. His stage combat was so over the top, probably in an effort to overcompensate for his less than stellar acting performance, that on almost every occasion where J.W. fought in a scene with weapons, either he or his scene partner would get injured. In one instance, and usually, by the way, it was J.W., in one instance, a female scene partner stabbed J.W. in the neck, accidentally, of course, but was so distraught that she thought that she killed this great man, she attempted suicide as a result. J.W. survived, of course. He was out of commission for a little bit, though. Theater did not stop during the Civil War. J.W. toured the North and the South, but was more welcome in the South than he was in the North. Yes, J.W. did act with his brother Edwin on stage at times, although Edwin was far the fan of J.W.'s acting. J.W. was a Southern favorite, and the more time he spent in Richmond or in the South, the more he became entrenched in Southern politics and society. It was during the years 1861 to 1865 that J.W., traveling with the Caning Dramatic Company, had the most successful time as an actor. The interesting note here is that he rarely used the Booth name. In the handbills advertising him, it was usually Mr. Wilkes or J.B. Wilkes. He only wanted to use the Booth name in billing after he had built a successful career and made a name for himself. So we jump ahead a bit more now to the assassination. History tells us that John Wilkes Booth shot Lincoln, who then later died on the morning of April 15, 1865. A manhunt ensued, ultimately ending with J.W.'s death on the Virginia tobacco farm on April 26, 1865. J.W. was certainly influenced by the plays he performed, and scholars debate as to exactly how much of his theater life influenced him. There's a couple of plays that he performed in that lead us to the idea that he became Brutus and that Lincoln was Julius Caesar and that his goal was to assassinate Caesar. One thing we do know about J.W. is he was not mentally stable. Psychiatrists and psychologists would have a field day had they gotten the chance to examine J.W. today. The death of his father at an early age, the constant battles with his brother for the dominance on the stage, his own failures as an actor and as a businessman, failures in his personal life, these are the things that led J.W. to Ford's Theater that night in April. Yes, we know the surrender of the South and J.W.'s Southern sympathies were a part of it, but what led John Wilkes Booth to go from actor to assassin was the tragedy of his constant failures at attempts to live a life where he could provide for his family and make a name for himself. J.W. will always be known as the man who shot Lincoln. Both he and his life will be looked at for years to come in an effort to understand his madness. In the end, however, the only way for John Wilkes Booth to become famous was through infamy. His life had become the greatest tragedy he would ever play as an actor. Thank you.